Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Friday, the 7th of August. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Cheska Letoncala. We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day.
From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and welcome to Morning Matters.
Let's begin with the impact of Tropical Storm Maymay as heavy rains caused flooding, overflowing rivers, and road disruptions in several parts of La Union. In San Juan, the Baroro River overflowed after continuous overnight rains, submerging the Santa Rosa Overflow Bridge and nearly isolating 5 barangays. Flooding also affected parts of San Fernando City, including Quezon Avenue, where floodwaters reached a gutter deep. According to the La Union Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, more than 5,250 families or 15,819 individuals have been displaced by the successive effects of tropical cyclones Luis and Maymay as well as Habagat. Despite improving weather conditions, the Office of Civil Defense warned that saturated soil continues to pose a risk of landslides and flash floods. So again, Maymay is the 13th tropical cyclone for 2026. And Pag-asa said earlier that 2 to 4 tropical cyclones could develop into, tropical cyclones could develop within or enter our Philippine area of responsibility this month. And unfortunately, the rest of the weekend will be still rainy. And of course, we have yet to get the estimate damage to the infrastructure and agriculture. And unfortunately, there are at least 6 people were reported dead amid this heavy rainfall due to tropical Maymay nga. And then it triggered landslides and flash floods. And what's worrisome then kasi there are some isolated areas right now no because of the landslides and flood. Ang worry kasi ng mga tao dun is baka hindi sila mabigyan ng agarang tulong. So we hope the local government units would be able to clear out the ways para mabigyan ng tulong yung mga kababayan natin. And what we can expect also is there's tulad nga na pag-usapan natin yesterday, there's a slightly increase of water level in Angat Dam. Although it's still below the critical level, at least there's some
Silver lining.
Oo, parang ganun. Kasi ang critical level natin is 160 meters. Parang ngayon umangat siya to 157.48 or 58. And normal water would be 200. So medyo mahaba pa yung iaangat niya.
Ang hirap kasi sunod-sunod siya. It's been one after the other. There hasn't been any respite for low-lying areas or remote areas na yun na nga nahihirapan na nga umabot ang aid, the evacuation centers, may tents na I think 8 families yung magkakasama. And it's just, this is why it's so important to never forget, to never stop checking kung ano na nga nangyari sa flood control funds natin, kung ano yung mga projects na hindi nagawa ng maayos, yung hindi nagawa at all. Because we need these projects to be working properly. Buhay ng mga tao, yung nakasalalay din dito eh.
And well, as we know, Tropical Storm Maymay has already weakened into a low pressure area, but still the Habagat or the southwest monsoon will continue to affect most parts of the country. It will persist even until the weekend, But our own Mon Gualvez is actually in La Union. He's been reporting evacuation centers are all full. They're at capacity already. As Cheska mentioned, there are lots of families. I believe there are 300 families in one evacuation center alone. So you can only imagine how much people are there, But the Office of Civil Defense, especially in Region 1, they're still on alert because of possible landslides, right? Flash floods, especially because mountains now are very saturated already. So the possibility of landslides, they're really there, So kailangan alerto po tayo. Hopefully, our local government units will be capable, diba, in responding to this.
Ako lagi ko din sinasabi because our country is disaster-prone area. Tapos talaga lagi tayo may mga bagyo. And I have yet to see a permanent evacuation center sana, Kung sakasakali hindi pa talaga natin kayang mailipat lahat ng mga kababayan natin away from the danger zones, Kasi parang what we do kasi we get classrooms, we get, although bawal na rin yun
Basketball
ngayon, we get
courts.
basketball courts mostly. And then doon nagtatayo ng mga makeshift tents, which is very uncomfortable din dun sa mga evacuees. So yun lang din yung parang, di ba yung gusto mo lang din even in the other countries, di ba, they do that, they have their own evacuation centers that would hold still, di ba, kapag may mga bagyo.
All right, but meanwhile, the United States has formally requested the extradition of Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder Apollo Quiboloy. Philippine ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, said Washington wants Quiboloy extradited as soon as possible over his pending cases in America. The request, which has been endorsed to the Justice Department, is linked to charges including sex trafficking of minors, fraud, and bulk cash smuggling. The DOJ may either defer his extradition until his Philippine cases are resolved or temporarily turn him over to U.S. authorities. Now, despite the legal battles facing its founder, Quiboloy's lawyers says the Kingdom of Jesus Christ continues its religious activities.
As a matter of fact, lumalakas sila eh. I don't know, meron siguro yung underdog effect ba, no? Hindi po ako member nila, Muslim po ako, pero napapansin ko mas marami sila mga baptismal rites ngayon. Sa awa ni Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, meron din silang continuous naman yung mga services nila every Sunday. They are still performing humanitarian works, no? So it is alive and kicking.
Okay, so when we hear the term extradition, a lot of people think automatic, immediate na yung pag-turnover, right, to a different state. But apparently that's not the case, ano? The request still has to go through several agencies and even our local courts. So first point of contact will be the DFA, and then the DOJ, and then ultimately our courts, because they still have to check if pasok sa legal requirements for extradition, right? But this story also may be familiar. Some people might compare it with the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte when an arrest warrant was issued by the International Criminal Court. But magkaiba po na cases yan, ano? Because the one of Quiboloy is extradition, the one of the ICC is just an arrest warrant. And since the ICC is not a state, it didn't have to technically pass through courts, diba? Our government said siya ay sinurrender sa ICC. So there are still also two options here for the government. Either they postpone the extradition and try the cases of Quiboloy here in the Philippines. He's already on trial, diba? Or they can also temporarily surrender him to the United States. As we know, Quiboloy is in the FBI's most wanted list, and apparently yung kanyang case in the States and in the US involves human trafficking, sending church members to solicit money from Americans to fund the operations of the church and even his extravagant lifestyle. So what the US wants here is accountability in their jurisdiction.
Yes, so he was actually placed on the FBI's human trafficking most wanted list. November 2021 pa, this was after he was indicted nga by the US Federal Grand Jury. As Pawi mentioned, there's a long list of charges against him. But also here in the Philippines, we also heard from Senator Risa Ontiveros, because back when she was the chair of the Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, I think 2024 dito na file yung case. There was a case in the Pasig RTC, and initially he was arrested in Davao, but the Supreme Court ordered him to be brought to QC, the case to be brought to QC naman. So Senator Risa actually issued a statement. She was saying na it's about time.
Yep.
It's about time na justice demands that he answers for these crimes in the very places he committed them.
Well, I remember kasi, I don't know if you guys remember, di ba, nung nawawala siya, hinanap pa siya sa Davao, doon sa area nila, sa KOJC, and then they were drilling floors. At that time, it was General Torre. Hindi pa siya General doon eh. Sa Davao, I forgot the
CIDG siya.
Oo. Tapos, and then eventually, there was also, kumbaga parang, disagreement kung did he really surrender or the police caught him, yung mga ganon. And then eventually, when he was brought here in Metro Manila, I was the one who covered it, no? Dun sa may Camp Crame. So, kami yung sumalubong sa kanya dun sa Camp Crame. And pagdating niya dun, he was wearing a mask, tas malaki yung tiyan. It was really different, oh. He was really different what we pictured him before. Kasi matagal siyang nawala, eh, diba? We don't see him, ganyan. Ang nakakakita lang sa kanya yung mga members ng church niya. So there were rumors pa during that time that we were in Camp Crame. At that time kasi ang DILG head pa nun si Benhur Abalos. No? So there were rumors pa na sabi, is he really kibuloy because he really looked different at that time. So yun lang naman yung naging naging problem. And then eventually they released yung booking procedure niya. So it turned out that it was him, yung kamukha naman niya, malaki lang yun siya. Sabi nila, baka daw kumain lang ng madami during his hiding.
Wala naman siya ibang gagawin pa.
Wala ibang gagawin.
Hindi makalabas eh.
Yeah. So anyway, tama naman lahat ng mga sinabi ninyo, no, tungkol dun sa extradition. But if you can also remember ng 2024, when he was, got arrested, President Bongbong Marcos said na he needs to, the Philippine courts need to try his cases here first because there are cases nga against him. So parang ang sinasabi nila ngayon, the ball is in the court of PBBM. He will decide to abide by the extradition, papuntahin dun sa US, or itry muna yung cases niya dito and then go to the US. Ang mangyayari daw kasi niyan, let's say for example, sa US na una, tinry siya doon, then convicted, and then here then convicted din siya. Parang concurrent yung magiging service niya.
Sentence niya.
Yung sentence niya, no. So tapos kung halimbawa magkaiba naman, cumulative naman yung sinasabi nila. So it would really depend, pero syempre ang sinasabi nila for President Bongbong Marcos to hear muna his cases here in the Philippines kasi paano naman yung mga people who filed cases against him. But other people like Senator Risa Ontiveros, it's high time for him to go there. If you can remember din kasi, nagulat sila bakit nakaalis pa siya from the US going back here. And at that time, it was President Rodrigo Duterte pa yung presidente natin. And we also have to remember, he appointed former President Rodrigo Duterte as the caretaker of his assets, di ba? Para sa silang wala pa.
So, sino na?
So, yun ang hindi ko alam. And kasi ba parang may nilalabas pa nga na conspiracy theory to si Senator Trillanes na lahat ng mga ari-arian ay ng Kingdom of KOJC ay it's not really his, it's President Rodrigo Duterte.
But as we know, the wheels of justice here in the country might
Take some time.
take some time.
And how old is he?
Oo.
Yeah.
So, kung sa US, mas mabilis ba yan?
Yeah.
If we're really about accountability and justice, baka mas mainam na. Sa
But
US
it also
na lang.
took 4 years for the extradition request. Okay.
At
And,
least
well,
4 years compared to baka 40 years eh. So,
Basta
I'll take the
ididinig
4
pa
years.
dito yan kung karapat dapat
I'm
ba siyang
sure-
ma-extradite eh.
I'm sure we will be talking more about this in the coming days or weeks. But moving on to Malacanang, reminding Senator judges in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte to remain impartial. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro raised concerns that some senator judges appear to be acting as lawyers during the proceedings, stressing that such a role is not part of their mandate as members of the impeachment court. Meanwhile, Vice President Duterte urged Castro to act professionally after the palace official dismissed as baseless and nonsense her claim that the International Criminal Court is a lapdog of the Marcos administration. Duterte argued that Castro should refrain from expressing personal opinions because she speaks on behalf of the office of the president.
Kung ano ang sinasabi ng batas. So kung ano yung sinasabi ng batas, kung ano yung sinasabi ng ebidensya, sana ay wag walisin, wag linisin, at pahinain ang katotohanan at lihisin ang kung ano ang sinasabi ng batas.
Ulitin ko ha. Si Claire Castro is a spokesperson of the President and the Office of the President, or hindi ko alam kung kaninong spokesperson siya. Pero by the fact na spokesperson ka at merong seal ng Office of the President dyan, dapat maging professional ka sa mga sinasabi mo. Kung ano yung professionalism na hinihingi galing doon sa opisina na yon, yun dapat ang ipakita at ibigay mo sa taong bayan.
Fresh from her win over Alicia Parks yesterday, Alex Ayala continues her Canadian Open campaign. The Filipina tennis ace dominated the opening set 6-1 before Parks forced a decider. Ayala regained control in the third set to complete a 6-1, 4-6, 6-2 victory and advance to the round of 32. Up next in singles is American Katie McNally as Ayala targets a deeper run in the WTA 1000 tournament. But first, Ayala returns to the court tonight for the doubles event, teaming up with tennis legend Venus Williams against Miyu Kato and Lyudmila Samsonova. Ayala enters Toronto with plenty of momentum, fresh from capturing her first WTA singles title at the DC Open. So this is not the first time that Alex and Venus are teaming up. We saw them together in the Bad Homburg Open in Germany. They reached the quarterfinals. They were actually supposed to team up again together in the Mubadala Open, but Alex withdrew from the doubles tournament to focus on the singles, where
Which paid
she
off.
won. Parang tama naman yung decision
Clearly
niya.
paid off.
So now we are excited because the more you play together, the more you build chemistry. So let's see, how far Venus and Alex can go together this time around.
It's going to be interesting to see what their chemistry is like. But Alex is no stranger to winning in doubles, the doubles format. Her first Grand Slam was actually in the juniors level in the Australian Open, where she won with her partner. I think that was Priska Nugro, who she's an Indonesian or Malaysian. So she already won a title in the doubles, but now we'll see baka she'll get one na in the seniors level.
Wala ko naman, it's no surprise for me kapag may mga balita tayo nito about Alex, di ba, yung nananalo siya and she's shining in court. And you will see also kapag sa mga tournaments or sa mga court like in Canada, in the US, kapag sinabing may match si Alex Ayala, within
Sold
30
out.
minutes, sold out na eh.
Yeah.
So, there's no way but up dito kay Alex Ayala. So, we are just very happy and proud of you and hopefully you can visit us here
Yes.
on Morning Matters.
But also, sana po wag natin siya i-distract.
Hey, good news for Filipinos because Alex apparently has a competition in Singapore next month.
Ayan, mas malapit-lapit.
Mas malapit siya.
Yes!
Pwede.
So it's the
Reachable.
Singapore Open. It's a WTA 500 tournament. It's happening September 21. Hopefully, tickets are not yet sold out. So, book na po kayo.
Okay, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Tropical depression Maymay has now weakened into a low-pressure area east of Isabela. And to help us understand the latest weather situation, we now have Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo. John, ano ba ang latest kay Maymay?
Yes, Pauline, tuluyan na nga po na naging low-pressure area itong si Maymay and eventually it has now dissipated or nalusaw na this morning lang around 8 a.m. po. And yung mas nakaka-apekto po sa atin sa kasalukuyan ay itong hanging habagat na kung saan ay nagdadala ito ng mga pag-ulan na posibleng magdulot ng mga kalat-kalat na pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa, lalo na dito sa mga probinsya ng Zambales, Bataan at Occidental Mindoro. Ganoon din naman ay makakaranas din ng mga pag-ulan at posible rin yung mga localized floodings dito sa mga probinsya ng Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, Abra, Benguet, Tarlac, Pampanga, Bulacan, Cavite, Batangas, Antique at kasama din po yung Metro Manila. At base po dun sa ating huling heavy rainfall advisory ay naka-yellow pa rin po dito sa Metro Manila. Ibig sabihin ay makakaranas pa rin tayo ng mga pag-ulan sa susunod na 2 hanggang 3 oras. At yan po yung ating update mula dito sa Pag-asa.
Okay, John, so hanggang kailan ba tayo makakaranas ng malakas na pag-ulan?
Well, unfortunately po, yung weekend natin ay makakaranas pa rin tayo ng mga pag-ulan, even yung early ng next week. So, kapag mas sumina na po yung habagat, approximately by the end of next week, ay doon na po natin mas mararamdaman yung improved weather conditions.
All right, thank you very much for that update. That was Pag-asa Weather Specialist, Dr. John Manalo. And in other news, the prosecution has raised concerns over possible delays in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza has this report.
The 13th day of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial concluded with House prosecutors expressing their concern of a possible delay in the process of presenting their documents and evidence pertaining to the confidential funds of VP Sara. That is after the defense disagreed to stipulate over 4,000 documents, particularly acknowledgement receipts submitted by the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education in their liquidation reports.
Or not, these things are causing delay. Oh, maliwanag yan. Nakita natin yan doon sa pagpresenta kay Roderick Wamil. Nag-recess tayo more than 1 hour. Ganyan na naman tayo dito kay Silene de la Campos.
Ang totoo, hindi ko talaga namin maintindihan why they would not want to stipulate these particular pieces of evidence kung these are basically common exhibits.
Regardless of the situation, the court decided that these documents be presented and marked by both parties until this Friday so as to finish this phase of stipulations and continue on with the witness Silene del Campo. The prosecution panel still noted that they do not see this as the defense's deliberate attempt to delay proceedings. Redon further said that it is crucial for the prosecution to completely present their documents with Del Campo as she will corroborate stories on confidential funds, especially with the accomplishment reports audited by the Commission on Audit.
Well, ang totoo, mas malawak po ata yung coverage nung kay Ms. Del Campo, no? Kasi hindi lang po yan patungkol doon sa mga binanggit po ni Mr. Wamil. Pero makikita din po natin kasi, for example, yung pong grouping of names, no? Na parang linaro lang po ng pangalawang Pangulo at ng OVP, yung pong submission po ng mga pangalan.
The impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte will resume on Monday, August 10. Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Now at this point, let's get the latest from the Senate. We now go live to our mobile journalist, Marymon Reyes. So Marymon, nakapag-decide na ba ang prosecution at defense kung kailan nila paplantsahin itong mga stipulations pagdating sa acknowledgement receipts?
Huli ng huling sinabi kasi ng impeachment court ni Presiding Officer Senator Chis Escudero nitong Wednesday is either Thursday or Friday dapat daw magkaroon na ng pag-aayos, yung pag-check ng documents na meron ng prosecution in comparison sa kung anong meron ang defense. Pero suspendido kasi kahapon ang Senate office kaya it's either they only have today or until before the impeachment trial continues on Monday para magawa ito. Ang concern kasi ng defense dito is baka raw hindi sila pareho, may kopya daw sila nito acknowledgement receipts or other pieces of evidence, pero baka raw, minarkahan nila pareho, pati ng kabila na prosecution, baka raw magkaiba yung kopya nila. Kaya ang sinasabi pa nga ni Senator Escudero, okay, magsasagawa tayo ng parang pre-trial ulit sa harap ng Clerk of Court, Senate Secretary Ray Bantug. Ikukumpara lang natin, pero wala tayong sabing admissibility pa dito. We're just gonna compare for the assurance of both parties. And even defense counsel to the prosecutors, Attorney Lorna Capunan, challenge yung defense na, okay, kung gusto nyo, para hindi na lang mag-compare, gamitin na lang daw yung mga dokumentong meron ang defense dahil ang OVP at ang DepEd, ito lang din naman daw ang mga pinasa sa COA. Pauline.
Okay, so with that, Marymon, what can we expect from the impeachment court next week?
Pauline, hindi kasi natapos. Sobrang saglit lang yung pag-upo ni State Auditor sa Del Campo nitong Wednesday. At kinapos na kasi ng oras sa kanyang direct examination kasi may proposed stipulations pa ang prosecution and other administrative matters. Sa Monday, babalik si Del Campo sa witness stand and then pinapatawag na rin itong dalawang Special Disbursement Officer ng DepEd pati ng OVP na sina Gina Acosta pati sina Edward Fajarda. Meanwhile, ang sinabi rin ng impeachment court, kumbaga yung pagdidismiss ng Supreme Court doon sa petition ng Camp ni VP Sara Duterte na innullify yung hearings na ginawa sa House of Representatives, ito ay kumbaga kinonfirm na natapos na ang papel ng House at ngayon nasa Senado na bilang impeachment court ang kanilang gampanin pagdating dito sa impeachment trial. So dineclare na ng Supreme Court na moot na yung petition and ang nililinaw naman dito ni impeachment court spokesperson Attorney Reggie Tonggol, yung expected na impartiality, it will be done at ipapakita yan ng senator judges kasi yung burden ng proof nasa part yan ng prosecution. Yung pagde-defense naman sa respondent, nasa parte naman yan ng defense. So ang titignan na lamang ngayon talaga ng impeachment court is itong articles of impeachment. So tuloy-tuloy na next week yung pagrolyo ng impeachment trial. Pauline.
All right, thank you very much for those updates. I was mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Stakeholders are calling for clearer AI policies that protect the public while allowing the technology to grow and benefit more sectors. Mobile journalist Fatima Baduria tells us more in this report.
The 3-day AI festival at the Iloilo Convention Center ended with a call for an AI policy that benefits various sectors. Meanwhile, the DOST says it is actively coordinating with Congress for policies without over-regulating.
The DOST Western Visayas wrapped up its AI Fest with a proposal from stakeholders for stronger policies governing AI use in the country. Without legislations on AI regulation, initiatives currently rely on the DOST's National AI Strategy or NAISPH framework to guide AI development. While DOST Secretary Renato Solidum Jr. says they are actively working with Congress to form an AI law, he warns that over-regulating technology may have its drawbacks.
The crucial thing, though, is we need to avoid over-regulation of a technology that is rapidly changing. And this is well understood because you cannot regulate something which you don't understand very well. So I think that the best policies or laws that will be crafted should take this in mind. The technologies that are rapidly changing should have certain guardrails, but allow them to develop. But definitely, the principle is it should be human-centered and it will be used for good purposes.
Among regions, Western Visayas was the first to release an AI development action plan aligned with NAISPH. A year after its launch, Western Visayas now has its AI governance and ethics framework approved by the Regional Development Council.
The perspective of the RDC also is to ensure that all activities related to AI, whether it is in talent development, in application, in R&D, should really be anchored first and foremost on the ethical and responsible use of AI. So nakatutok tayo dyan and of course, we are glad that the RDC has already passed the governance and ethics policy. And this is now one of the major reference documents that we are using for all other institutions that are now crafting their own institutional level AI governance and ethics policies also.
The last day of the AI Fest featured a collaborative policy drafting activity alongside other workshops and discussions throughout the event. The talks included its application in creatives, education, and business. Kapatid Fatima Baduria, we are One News.
Now, don't go away because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
Your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Philippines' second quarter gross domestic product data are out in the next hour. Analysts from the Business World poll expect a median GDP of 2.8%. JP Rivera, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, joins us live. The country's agricultural sector posted slower growth in the second quarter. And Meralco is upgrading its older metering system as part of efforts to reduce system losses and improve monitoring of electricity delivered across its distribution network. The Philippine Statistics Authority releases its second quarter GDP report at 10 a.m. Philippine time. A Business World poll of 21 economists and analysts show a median forecast of 2.8% GDP growth for Q2. They cite elevated inflation, weaker household spending, soft business confidence, and slower public infrastructure spending. If realized, this would match first quarter growth, but slower than the 5.4% expansion a year ago. First half GDP growth would also average 2.8%, which is below the government's 3.5% to 4.5% full year target. Meantime, the PSA kept first quarter GDP growth at 2.8%, but revised gross national income growth down to 2.9% from 3%. It also lowered its estimate for net primary income from abroad to 3.5% from 4.5%. The PSA also revised several industry estimates, lowering growth for other services, utilities, and education, while raising estimates for manufacturing, transportation, and retail trade. The agency said such revisions are part of the standard national accounts process. Meanwhile, agriculture grew 2.9% in the second quarter. That's lower than the 6% posted a year ago, but a reversal from the first quarter's contraction of 0.3%. The Agriculture Department says better output across all subsectors helped drive the improvement. It added that farm modernization is strengthening the sector ahead of the expected weather challenges later this year. Philippines' real GDP expanded by 2.8% in Q1 2026, down from 5.4% in Q1 2025 and 3% in Q4 2025. That is well below the government's 5 to 6% target range. Second quarter GDP would reveal the impact of the full transmission of the Middle East conflict. This coming on top of slowed public and private infrastructure spending, resulting from the flood control corruption scandal. Well, with us now for his insights, JP Rivera, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. It's good seeing you again, JP.
Hi, good
Welcome
morning, Kathy.
back
Thank you for
to the
having me
program. Yeah, 6 weeks ago, you were here on this program, slashing the full year GDP forecast from 5.3% to 4%. And you cited several factors there: credibility and systemic risks, oil shocks, and political spectacles. So how do you think Q2 would look like in the next hour when the official result is released?
Well, based on the initial estimates that we had, we're forecasting the second quarter GDP to be around 3%, which would allow us to have still a full year GDP growth of close to 4%, assuming that the economic fundamentals for the third and fourth quarter would remain to be strong and the economy would be very responsive now to the improvements in the global situation and more policy certainty that we have, since the second half of the year is now very interesting given that holidays are coming again and we are expecting improvements in the government spending as well as consumption given the more manageable inflation now.
Assuming the fundamentals are strong. That's for the second half. But what exactly happened in the first half with the insights you've shared over the past 6 weeks? There's systemic and credibility crisis. I mean, have we moved the needle on that 6 weeks on?
Okay. Well, 6 weeks after our last conversation, I think we have to ask a different kind of question so that we can look at the economy in a different way. Because in the first half of the year, we're asking how can we grow the economy further so as we can also sustain the upper middle income country status. But given the recent developments on inflation, unemployment, I mean, these figures were released this week, I guess we also have to ask now the question about the quality of growth that we're trying to achieve. Because in talking about the quality of growth, we're not just talking about expansion, we're also talking about how can we generate quality jobs? How can we make sure that there is manageable inflation? How can we make sure that food is actually priced in such a way that the Filipino people would be able to afford it?
Let's pick up on inflation because it seems like it's decelerating. Yes, there's still a rise in prices, although a little bit more slower. Isn't that manageable enough? Aren't we taking, at least from the central bank's point of view, that they're getting a hold of inflation, even as it still remained above the ceiling?
Well, I would like to look at it this way. Yes, the BSP is actually reaping the effects of its monetary policy, but I would also like to see this as the economy actually being responsive to certain improvements that we have in the agriculture, manufacturing, and services sector. And the response of the economy is, it may not yet be well within the target, but it is actually making improvements that we have to sustain. So again, other than the question of quality growth, it is also a question of whether the improvements can be sustained in the third and fourth quarter.
And to protect purchasing power, which was already a problem 6 weeks ago, and you were very definitive about this. How much work has the government done in protecting that? And also to ensure that those in the poor category hadn't yet entered the new poor?
Well, government has been working in terms of providing social protection as well as managing macroeconomic fundamentals. So it's both at the end of the spectrum wherein there's a policy component and the immediate relief being given by government just to tread, not just for our fellow Filipinos, to tread the relatively higher prices. That's why improvements can be seen, but then sustaining it is a different story.
It is, because when you talk about ayuda, and that's where all the monies are gone in, and that is also the guidance that we get from the State of the Nation address of the President. How much further can growth go with so much ayuda still being given out, which could have been used for the infrastructure projects that you've been waiting for, the multiplier effects that would precede the kind of growth that you foresee in the second half?
But we also have to understand that this ayuda component is to simply address the immediate relief that our kababayans are actually demanding. That's why, but it has to be complemented with two things. Number one, the ayuda system should have an escape system wherein, or it is not permanent. There should be an exit strategy for government for this ayuda system not to persist for an extended period of time, I mean, as aligned with our fiscal consolidation processes, but it also has to be accompanied by structural reforms. Because the point of the ayuda is to manage the consumption, to ensure that consumption would continue to drive the economy. But given the situation domestically and internationally, we see that consumption is not the only way to drive growth. And we cannot fully rely on consumption to drive economic growth for the next quarters. That's why we have to look at it also from an investment-driven growth. Consumption has to be complemented by government investments in higher productivity, better education, better institutions, better healthcare services, better social protection, so that this consumption can be fueled further.
Well, let me connect the dots now that you made a mention about jobs, that needed more pumping up. And in the words of Marco Antonio Agoni, I just had him about 48 hours ago before the jobs data came out. He's from UANP. He was very definitive about looking for the strongest drivers, and he is looking for that in higher value jobs. That would create that productivity growth needed for the kind of growth that we want to sustain ourselves in UMIC. So how then do you connect the dots? Because our unemployment rate has shown a bit of a bump up over the last 24 hours, even though underemployment went down a bit.
Well, that has a starting point. The starting point of that investment in infrastructure, in education, would have to begin with human capital. So if we have a productive workforce, because government and private sector do invest in healthcare, in education, then we would have productive Filipino workers that will contribute not only for their own personal productivity, but also to firm productivity. When firms becomes productive, then they would be able to contribute more to production, to their contribution to manufacturing, to the different sectors of the economy. And that investment in human capital will now funnel into greater consumption for those who are actually working. It's a cycle.
It is a cycle, but then, of course, the private sector takes its cue from the government, and we've been looking at that data on public infrastructure spending. That hasn't really improved, giving really less impetus for private spending to go up.
Yeah, because of that issue, because I mean, with all the checks and balances in the infrastructure sector, that's why we're arguing that investments may not only go into infrastructure. Investments may also come in the form of human capital, education, healthcare. And if investments are done on that sector, then we're actually reinforcing the other side of the economy, which is the people. And this human capital, the human resources that we have, the better skilled Filipinos that we have, can now stimulate better growth, not only through consumption, but also through investments and through their own contribution in the economy.
Right, I see it now that the leapfrogging has to happen from a consumer-driven economy to investment-led. But how to get there, this huge gap right in between. And if the first half would be a palette in which we can work whatever we've learned, what should the government then do in the second half to get to its targets and not revise them down again?
Yeah. Well, certain interventions must have to be done in the second half of the year. One of them would be to ensure policy credibility and policy stability. So those policies mentioned in the SONA must be able to manifest.
Such as? What would you name, like a top three?
Well,
What would be the most immediate?
The most immediate would be, for example, it was mentioned regarding the tax. However, the tax would have to be studied very well because it would have different effects on different segments of society. There will be beneficiaries, there will also be those who would be negatively affected by that. So the tax discussion would have to be put on the table, and the legislation would have to work on it within the second half of the year so that its immediate effects can manifest by fourth quarter.
Which tax then? I mean, which would you back up? Because he did mention a couple of them that involve also the MCIT and also maybe even bringing back suspension on excise taxes and fuels.
Well, that can be managed, that can be done. But again, these are reliefs that will allow the preservation of purchasing power of the Filipino people. But again, there has to be an exit strategy because the landscape will change, may change in the second, third quarter, even early next year.
So that's just preservation, but we're wanting to leapfrog. So which priority then should the government tackle in the immediate so that we can ensure that growth path that you're expecting for the second half?
Well, immediately, again, I would like to emphasize again that rebuilding this confidence of the private sector on the policies being implemented by government is a must because investments by the private sector are being done now. The decision to make an investment is being done now. And with a wait-and-see behavior of many investors right now, that has to be pacified so that they make the investment decision within the year.
It sounds like that credibility crisis is still hovering above us like a cloud. What then should be done? I mean, we're now at a period where there's the Senate impeachment trial and the flood control corruption scandal still currently being addressed. What would be favorable from a foreign investor point of view that would give them that confidence that they lost a year back?
Well, on top of improving macroeconomic fundamentals, government may also reconsider speeding up certain processes like investigations, and as what I have mentioned in previous interviews, wherein rebuilding the trust would warrant that certain issues would have to be clarified, information would have to be given to the public, to investors, so that their decision-making process would shift from a wait-and-see to a more definitive shelling out of investment of funds towards the economy.
So that's it. I mean, that's a huge lot, and it's not even into probably the Philippine Development Plan, we hadn't even touched that. So from the side of economic planners, what can be done beyond monetary policy tools?
Well, beyond monetary policy, and I think I have mentioned this before, that monetary policy alone cannot stimulate the growth that we have. Then we have to look at now on the fiscal behavior. There really has to be a process by which we can speed up the investment in infrastructure, the infrastructure outlay, so that the productive effects, the multiplier effects of these infrastructure would now be felt by the Filipino workers.
Okay, so you're still hanging on at 4% growth for the full year?
For the full year. I mean, I'm still optimistic about that growth, and it will be coming from different factors. Internationally, we are seeing improvements in the geopolitical situation abroad. And secondly, the holiday season is coming, and historically for previous years, while consumption is very strong in the second half of the year, it has now to be reinforced by certain policy interventions that the government can do now, like building trust and looking into other forms of investments, particularly in human capital.
And that's beyond ayuda, because that can only get us far enough.
It is beyond ayuda. It is more sustainable and can be felt in the succeeding years.
So what kind of data then would make you rethink that 4% target? Because you've already revised that down more than a full percentage point back in June.
Well, we would like to see improvements, number one, in the investment sector of the Philippines. In the FDI inflow, we want to see an increase, and that can be driven by improved trust. If we really want the short-term growth to at least accelerate, then certain improvements in trust and confidence, not only of foreign investors, but also of local investors, should manifest immediately.
Just as a final point, how then does it make sense for us to appreciate still our upper middle income status at this point? What would you tell a netizen, a viewer, and why it's still important, even as we're chasing headline growth?
Well, I must again emphasize that the upper middle income country status is a milestone achievement of the Philippines. However, we have to keep in mind that it is not the end point. It is not the end of the development journey of the Philippines. And for everyone, for the Filipino people, this is actually a rallying call for every one of us, government, private sector, local communities, media, the academe, to continue calling for accountability, for transparency, because these are easier said than done. But then these are the key for us to be able to sustain the upper middle income country status and actually move faster towards our ambition 2040.
So
it's a tall order. It is a tall
is.
order. That's why I keep on emphasizing that it requires a more sophisticated approach to maintaining strong macro and microeconomic fundamentals.
Sounds like coordination that's really got to be so much stronger and closer.
It has to be. It is difficult, but we have to take it because our ambition is very reputable. And I know we can make it.
All right, so we're just about 22 minutes away from the data. Thank you
so much
for your
Thank you.
insights.
Until
Appreciate
next time.
it, JP Rivera of PIDS. Let's check out the Philippine markets and see how they've fallen again yesterday as investors opted to stay on the sidelines ahead of the second quarter GDP release out at 10 a.m. Philippine time. PSEI shed 8 points or 0.1% to settle at 6,277. PhilStock's financial notes losses were trimmed late in the session due to bargain hunting activities. Total turnover thinned to 6.18 billion pesos, with advancers edging out decliners 97 to 96. The broader all shares index added 0.63 points or 0.02%, but the sectoral gauges a mixed bag. 10-year government bond yields ticked down to 7.24%. And the corporate stories making headlines this Friday. Century Pacific Food Inc. posted a 6% year-on-year increase in net income after tax for the first half of 2026. The growth comes amid higher fuel prices and the June 8 Mindanao earthquake that damaged CNPF's manufacturing facilities in General Santos City. Universal Robina Corp's second quarter core net income attributable to parent grew 10% to 2.9 billion pesos, lifted by its branded consumer foods and animal and nutrition health products. URC's board of directors has also approved special cash dividends of 2 pesos and 30 centavos per share payable on September 30. And Meralco is upgrading its older metering system to reduce system losses. The country's largest power distributor rolling out its elevated metering transformation system an upgraded version of its earlier elevated metering center program. The investments come as policymakers debate on whether to scrap system losses as part of the president's agenda to lower power rates. And you're watching Money Talks. Coming up, an excerpt of my conversation with Geraldine Acuna Sunshine of Khan Academy, Philippines, on preparing students for an AI-driven future. And Port's billionaire Enrique Razon Jr. topped this year's Forbes richest list in the Philippines. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. A new law has removed the mandatory use of the spiral progression approach in the K-12 curriculum. Republic Act 12332 gives the Education Department more flexibility to choose the most effective teaching method for students. The law lapsed into effect without President Bongbong Marcos' signature. Spiral progression may still be used, but schools are no longer legally required to follow it. The law also orders a comprehensive review of the basic education curriculum every 5 years. So how can the Philippines better prepare students for an AI-driven future while addressing persistent challenges in reading, math, science, and critical thinking? Here's an excerpt of my thought leaders' conversation with Geraldine Acuna Sunshine, President and CEO of Khan Academy Philippines, on the country's education priorities and the importance of expanding access to quality learning for every Filipino child.
Our platform has an AI feature called Conmigo AI, and we gave that free. We have given that free to all teachers, and in fact, DepEd has funded quite a bit of our teacher training to allow us to teach, to train teachers on how to use Conmigo AI, and really how to use the Khan Academy platform, because it will, this tool is so powerful, it will reduce their admin time, the time they spent in not teaching, right? Which is what teachers really complain about. So this is the best of AI, where it's a productivity tool and can really help you focus on doing what you love and what you're trained to do, which is teach, versus, create lesson plans, which you can do in 2 minutes instead of 3 hours, right? So this is a Harvard study that was done, and 600 Filipino teachers responded and said that, wow, I can use Conmigo AI to cut down the time on admin so I can actually teach.
Yeah, getting pushbacks from teachers, not really knowing what the role of AI is at work. Is it sort of a supporter at the back end, or is it something that may take center stage at some point, take away their job?
No, we're not here to replace teachers' jobs, and it really shouldn't do that, right? Conmigo AI is there for teacher support, for student support. So our teacher trainings will allow teachers to understand the power of this technology. Because it's like deciding to use a flip phone when we already have smartphones, right? I mean, does anyone want to go back to a flip phone?
When you have the IT BPM industry saying that the 2028 forecasts have to come off a bit because of AI and global competition, how then, as from an educator standpoint, do you address that gap in workforce, in our ability to catch up? to what is needed in the global space?
So the world of work will change. Anytime you have new disruptive technology, it's going to shift, right? Because we're also seeing what AI can do that's very powerful that maybe you needed 10 people to do before. And now you can have actually your phone do it because chat is there. And, there's AI at our fingertips. We're all seeing it now. So that's happening, whether we like it or not, that's happening. So the education system also has to move with that because there are going to be new jobs and new skills that are required to meet the needs of the new job.
Catch the full conversation on One News and our social media channels. Let's take a quick check on the Philippine peso and see how it's open. This Friday, it is weaker, 60.90 to the dollar. The peso dropped 6.4 centavos yesterday to settle at 68.15 against the greenback. The local unit depreciated due to the dollar's strong buying pressure ahead of the release of the U.S. jobs report. Expectations of a weaker second quarter GDP also weighed on the peso. Checking in on the markets overseas, U.S. stock futures a mixed bag as investors await the country's jobs report. The Dow, the S&P 500 fall by about 0.1%, and the Nasdaq slids about 0.1%. Asian markets are also a mixed bag this Friday. South Korea's Kospi rises over 0.5%. Australia's ASX 200 slips by 0.4%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 declines by 0.6%. Wall Street fell this Thursday. The Dow broke its 5-day winning streak, down 0.8%. S&P 500 slid nearly 0.2%, and the Nasdaq shed less than 0.1%, with shares of companies like SanDisk and Western Digital falling for their failure to meet investors' lofty expectations. Meantime, a new tycoon has topped the Forbes annual list of the 50 richest in the Philippines. Sports and casino magnate Enrique Razon Jr. is this year's richest Filipino with a net worth of $21.8 billion. His listed companies include ICTSI, the first to reach a market value of 2 billion pesos, Manila Water, and Solaire operator Bloomberry Resorts. Razon unseats his siblings, heirs to the SM Group, whose fortune slid to $9.2 billion. Other tycoons who made it to the top 5 are San Miguel's Ramon Ang, Pure Gold's Lucio and Susan Go, and DMCI's Isidro Consunji and siblings. The combined wealth of tycoons in the list fell 8% to $79 billion from last year's $86 billion. And it's that time again for the year for Filipino indie cinema as the Cinemalaya Philippine Independent Film Festival officially gets underway. This year's festival features 9 full-length films, 2 short film programs, along with book launches, talkbacks, and other special events. Leading the main competition are 2 Valid IDs, starring Pokwang, and Mag-iina, featuring Janine Gutierrez, Cherry Pai Picache, Agot Isidro, and Jackie Lou Blanco. Also competing are Tirik and Kakasayawan. The lineup also includes The Hand of God, as well as Tayo Lang Ang Nakakaalam. Rounding out the competition are Stage is Rejected, Animal, and Gang Gang. The opening also brought together members of the main competition jury, including Dan Villegas and Sari Luch Dalena, along with international jurors. Cinemalaya runs from August 6 to 18 with screenings at select cinemas across Metro Manila. TV5 is also one of the official media partners of this year's film festival. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again Monday at 9 a.m. right here on One News. Kapatid, we are One News, your side all the time. We'll leave you now with One News Station ID. Have a great weekend ahead. I'll see you Monday.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Oh, what can you say about our latest station ID?
Diba?
In full gown.
Parang Avengers Assemble.
Sakto lang
One
kasi
News
may
edition.
paparating na, diba, na movie. Pero yeah, what can you say?
Sumayaw si Ses.
I
At si Bok.
seeing their light side,
Yes.
And yung syempre yung mga suot din natin. Thank you.
Yes!
To
Nag-effort
our-
tayo dun
Gusto nyo suotin din natin dito,
on the show?
one episode.
I just feel like doing glam today.
Alright, but hopefully you guys enjoyed our station ID for 2026.
So it's going to be in the loop for the rest of the year, whether you like it or not. All right, in other news, the impact of former tropical depression Maymay was felt across parts of northern Luzon. In La Trinidad, Benguet, 2 people were killed after a landslide buried an eatery while 1 person was rescued. Continuous rains also triggered flooding in parts of Baguio City, while Cannon Road remains closed due to the threat of rock slides. In La Union, fishermen are preparing to return to sea after more than a week without income due to successive weather disturbances. 5 fishermen were also rescued off Bawang after their boat developed engine trouble amid rough waves. Authorities continue to watch for possible landslides and flash floods as soil in mountainous areas remains saturated.
Yung kabundukan na yan yung mga nagsaserve na watershed, di ba? Pag nasaturate niya, this time talagang, I believe, saturated na yan. It's just a matter of, wag naman sana, na magkakaroon tayo ng problema sa landslide, magkakaroon tayo ng flash floods, yung mga ganyan. So yan din yung isang binabantayan natin.
And now let's talk to Diego Mariano, Information Officer of the Office of Civil Defense. Thank you for joining us, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Apo, good morning at magandang umaga din po sa ating mga viewers.
Okay. Sir, unang-una po, first and foremost, kamusta po ang mga affected families? Ano po ba yung mga latest figure po natin kung ilan po ba talaga ngayon, as of now, as we speak, ang affected families? Kung meron po tayo na italang casualties and mga na-displace po na mga residente?
Opo, as of latest report po natin this morning, ang bagyong Luis, Maymay at nitong habagat is nag-iwan po ng 4 na patay. Dalawa po is from La Trinidad Benguet due to land, and another 2 from Rodriguez Rizal due to rock slide naman po, and we have 1 injured kasama po yun doon sa may La Trinidad Benguet incident po. Then for our affected population po, meron po tayong almost 40,000 na pamilya po ang naapektuhan po. Katumbas po niyan is nasa almost 133,000 na katao po. With that number, ang ating pong nasa loob po ng ating mga evacuation centers, we have 2,000 families or katumbas po niyan ay nasa more than 6,000 na katao po. No? Bumaba po yan compared po yesterday na we have almost more than 2,200 families, no? Dahil yung iba po is nag-uuwian na rin po. So far po yan po yung ating numbers ng mga affected po natin.
Sir, confirm ko lang po ulit yung number of casualties. Is it 4 po or 6? At ano po yung naging dahilan ng kanilang pagkamatay?
Opo. Ang base po sa report po ng NDRMC, we have 4 dead po. Yan po yung sa rock slide and landslide. And we have been monitoring yung mga reports po ng drowning from the other provinces po na 2 incident po yan. Yan po is ating pong binavalidate at bine-verify kung ang cause po talaga ng kanilang drowning or death is due to the combined effects of tropical cyclone Luis, Maymay, and habagat po, no? Kasi kung ito po ay self-inflicted, ito po ay hindi po isasama sa report. Pero kung kita po na ito po talaga dahilan po dahil sa pag-ulan, ito po isasama po namin pag nakuha na po namin yung mga report po.
Sir, may mga areas po ba sa province of La Union na hirap nang maabutan ng aid?
As of now po, wala po tayong reports of isolated areas. No? Though we have places with na flooded po, we have 52 areas na flooded from regions 1 and 3. Pero ito po rin po ay possible. So yung mga assistance po na kailangan ng ating mga kababayan is naabot pa rin naman po.
And do we have latest assessment na po doon po sa damage to infrastructure and agriculture brought about by Tropical Depression Maymay?
With regards po sa amount ng damage to infrastructure in agriculture, still for assessment pa rin po. No? So inintay po lang po namin na mas gumanda-ganda pa po yung panahon para makababa po yung ating mga taga-assess po to get the real picture ng damage po natin. But we have initial reports of damaged houses. We have reported 14 damaged houses. So isa po dyan totally damaged and the rest are partially damaged lang po.
Pero sir, based on your assessment, anong mga lugar po yung kino-consider nyo na hardest hit?
Kung ang titingnan po natin is yung numbers of affected population, ang pinaka-hardest hit po talaga natin is yung Region 3. We have more than 26,000 families na affected, and Region 1, meron po tayo more than 11,000 affected. But we have also reported affected population from Cordillera, Region 2, Region 9, and Region 5 dahil itong effects ito is hanggang Mindanao po dahil yung habagat po yung nakaka-apekto po sa ibang lugar po bukod po sa track na dinaanan po nitong typhoons po natin.
Sir, meron din po kasi mga reports na yung mga evacuation centers, marami pong families na nagsha-share sa mga tents. Ano na po yung status ng mga evacuation centers? Kailangan pa po ba mag-expand? Kailangan pa po ba ng assistance in that regard?
Opo, patuloy po yung ina-assist po ng ating mga local government units and especially po ng DSWD na siya po nag-lead ng camp management po ng ating mga evacuees, no? Once na nakita po nila na or need na kailangan talaga mag-expand or mag-move or to a bigger evacuation centers is kaget po yan ng gagawin, no, kung kinakailangan po talaga.
Kamusta naman po, sir, yung ating mga relief operations in different areas? Ano-ano po yung mga pangunahing pangangailangan po ng ating mga evacuees?
As of now naman po, nabibigay naman po ng ating local government units yung assistance na needed ng ating mga kababayan, and it is also augmented by the national government agencies through the DSWD and OCD na nagbibigay po tayo ng mga non-food items and especially relief goods para sa mga kailang pangangailangan habang sila po ay nasa mga evacuation centers. Ganun din po sa ating mga kababayan na nangangailangan din po ng tulong, no? So almost 3.6 million na po worth of assistance na po ang naipapamahagi po ng ating LGU at ng ating mga national government agencies po.
Sir, kahit humina na nga po si Maymay, ay patuloy pa rin pong magpapaulan ang southwest monsoon o ang habagat. So ano po pa pong mga lugar ang masasabi niyo pong vulnerable sa mga landslides, flash floods, pati na rin mga rock slides? Sir?
Hello.
Okay.
Yes, po.
Go ahead, sir.
Apo. Na kailangan maghanda.
Okay, Sir Diego, medyo napuputol po yung ating linya. Let's try that again. Can you hear us okay, sir?
Hello.
Ayan po.
Hello.
Ayan.
Much clearer.
Sige, sir. So, opo. So, sir, ano pong mga lugar ang vulnerable pa rin po sa mga landslides, pati mga flash floods?
Yes po, kung places po na exactly na vulnerable po landslides, ito po yung mga areas na meron pong mountainous areas such as Cordillera regions. But hindi po namin pinipinpoint na ito lang po yung areas na kailangan mag-ready or ito lang po yung vulnerable. So lahat po ng areas na pinaghahanda po natin, no, dahil hindi lamang po bagyong tinitinan natin, pati rin naman po yung hanging habagat na nagdadala po ng ulan all over the Philippines po, no. So not just yung dinaanan po ng bagyo or mga mountainous areas na prone to landslide ang maghanda, but buong bansa po dapat dahil ang hanging habagat naman po ay halos buong bansa po ang
Sir?
Okay.
Sir Diego?
Sir, can you still hear us? Are you still on the line? Okay, mukhang
Okay, we'll try to.
Okay. Sir Diego?
We'll try to fix the line. Is he still there?
Yes po.
Ayun. Okay. Pihit lang po ng konti para po makakuha tayo ng mas magandang signal so that we can hear you better, sir. Can you hear us okay now? Okay. Alright, go ahead, Chester.
Ayan. Sir, in terms of infrastructure and of course sa agriculture po, may information na po ba tayo kung gaano kalala kung meron man yung sa damage nito?
With regards po sa infrastructure and agriculture damage, for assessment pa rin po tayo, no? Wala pa po tayong reports on the exact amount dahil intay lang po natin na gumanda-ganda yung panahon para makababa po yung ating mga taga-assess para makuha po yung picture ng ating mga damage po.
Alright. Thank you so much, Diego Mariano, Information Officer of the Office of Civil Defense.
Right, and now to give us, thank you very much, sir. And now to give us the latest on the province of La Union, we now have Governor Mario Eduardo Ortega. Good morning, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, good morning to all of you there.
Okay, sir. So, of course, our hearts go out to all those who were affected by Maymay and Luis there in La Union. It was one of the hardest hit areas here in the country, ano? Pero so far, sir, what's the latest situation in your province?
Well, it's a little bit of a little blessing na wala po kami masyadong casualties na naririnig ko. So far, as far as I am informed, wala po naman na related sa typhoon, ano? Aside from that, there are news na may mga baha and all that. But when we go there, umuupa naman kaagad and all that. The good news there is the drainage system is working. Now, yung kasing agriculture, yun ang nakakalungkot dahil I think lalaki pa yung reported damage namin. Ang initial pa lang namin is about 11 million. But usually, hindi pa kami nakakapunta sa mga parklang areas talaga and to receive and get the damage report, no? Now, yung ating mga roads, okay naman ang especially mga main roads, may mga konting landslides na napabalita noon na we have attended to. So everything is actually passable. But babalikan po rin namin yung mga nag-landslide to make it at least two-way. Kasi usually pagka nag-landslide, ang standard dyan one-way muna. Para pagka meron ng daan, we can use of the equipment to address other areas.
Right. But how many families po are affected in your locality, Governor?
Well, there are about 5,000 plus families affected as of now. Pero most of them are already, yung mga iba umuwi na, yung mga iba nasa mga kamag-anak lang nila dun sa mga beside, yung mga katabi nilang mga barangay or interpopulation area, no? There are just probably a few hundred na lang siguro ang natitira sa mga evacuation areas.
Sir, dire-diretso po kasi from Luis to Maymay. Yung kay Luis pa lang po, nagka-evacuations na and even more so with Maymay. Has there been any kind of relief, any sense of relief or mas nahihirapan pa po?
Well, the way ang projection naman nila, it is just the monsoon, ano? Okay lang naman, basta wag lang masyadong malakas na matagal na tuloy, no? Ang problema talaga namin dito sa La Union, whatever falls in the mountains, they end up here in our place, especially sa Benguet area. Baguio, ganyan. Lahat ng rivers kasi nila ang bagsak dito sa La Union. So that now multiplies the amount of water that lalo na dun sa mga river areas namin, sa mga delta, no? They're the ones that are actually flooded.
Governor, nabanggit nyo nga po, at least 11 million pesos of agricultural damage was recorded. Sir, ano po bang mga lugar at mga pananim o crops yung pinaka natamaan dito?
Well, as of now, usually yan, karamihan yan mga rice. Yung mga vegetables na iba. In fact, yung isang demo farm ng probinsya, yun ang may report ako na may na-damage ng konti. But on the actual damage, I have not actually assessed it as of now. Pero yun yung mga initial pa lang na pinapasabi. Ang tobacco kasi, tapos naman na ang tobacco season dito eh.
So sir, magpapaabot po ba kayo, Governor, ng assistance lalo na sa mga magsasaka?
Oh, always. Alam mo yan ang standard na ano namin. In fact, this is where I will take this opportunity to be thanking our President. No? Alam mo, mahal na mahal kami niyan dito. So, kakaingitan siguro nung iba, but anong magagawa ko? No? Parang ano din niya kung minsan, may favorite kang tao. No? But, with us here, we feel the help of all the national agencies. I am sure you have discussed this with DSWD, with OCD, the PNP, and all other agencies concerned. No? Ang tulong dito, hindi sila nagkukulang. And our coordination with them is fantastic. We have a excellent communication as far as effort to address the present situation is concerned.
Well, kamusta naman po when it comes to basic necessities yung sa mga affected families po pagdating po sa water, linya ng communication, kuryente, how are things there in La Union?
Well, dito naman sa DOH natin, they provide yung parang yung medicine na nilalagay sa water that even it's a little bit hindi yung ganun ka-clear, no? But it makes it safe for them to drink, no? That is available especially. Alam mo, bago pa lang yung bagyo, meron na yung mga yan, naka-preposition na yung iba. And like what I told you, constant ang sabi nila. Now, alam mo, yung tubig dito, mas ang problema nila pagka yung wala itong bagyo kasi yung service provider ang problema. Yung dating Prime Water, I do not know the actual situation right now, pero maraming nagko-complain na wala silang tubig na nakukuha. So this is what we were about to address. Sumama naman itong bagyo. So, medyo nagkaroon na naman ng delay.
Gov, kanina napag-usapan niyo po yung agricultural areas ninyo, pero what about the seaside towns? Kamusta naman po yung water levels? Are there strong waves? Pinalikas po ba yung mga pamilya by the sea?
Most of the time, every time that we have a typhoon, we usually ask them to evacuate before the typhoon even hits, no? Pero meron pa rin yung mga matitigas ang ulo. You cannot blame them, no? So we try to assure them na most of the time kasi itong mga fishermen, if they don't go out and fish for today, wala pong kakainin yung pamilya nila. So we make sure na yung pamilya po nila, pag hindi po sila nakapaglayag, o hindi sila nakapunta sa dagat, we give them a little assistance on food security. So that is one of the things that we do from constantly. Binibigyan po namin sila ng subsistence, especially dun sa mga evacuation areas where they are given the relief goods. Sometimes yung relief, yun ang inuuwi nila for a day or two that will get them across before they can go back to work. Right now, we do not advise them to go out in the sea. Medyo rough pa rin ng konti ang dagat.
Well, Governor, ngayong tagulan at may mga pagbaha, hindi po natin maiiwasan na pag-usapan yung mga flood control projects. Ilang mga grupo po they're calling already for an investigation into 19 flood control and drainage projects that are worth more than 773 million pesos. Kayo po, Governor, sa inyong provincial government, may nakita na po ba kayong mga flood control structures na substandard po o kahit yung mga ghost project pa nga na tinatawag?
Well, I will not preempt those people who are investigating it. But as far as my knowledge is concerned, hindi naman po nangyayari yan dito. But then, some of the records are not with us, no? In fact, when this thing happened, I was not the governor then. So there are a lot of, how would I call it, yung monitoring ko ng ganyan, hindi talaga kumpleto. Because pumutok ko yung flood control na yan, I was not yet in office at that time.
Pero sir, effective po ba yung mga flood control nyo dyan sa La Union?
Well, as far as I have seen, no, effective naman po sa mga ibang lugar, although there are others na hindi pa po kumpleto. So the effectiveness of the flood control depends also on the completeness of the whole project. That is what I have aired to Secretary Vince, no? Na may mga flood control na kailangan din ma-address natin. Especially dito po sa highways natin. Kaya nagkakaroon ho ng flood yan kuminsan. The drainage system is not adequate or kulang po or kailangan lakihan, i-improve ng ganon. So, kasi ang highways dapat all year, all time na open yan. So you have to address the drainage of the water falling down, coming from the mountains, going through across the highways and all that. But so far, I would say that things are doing well here in our place.
Well, I want to go back to the families affected. Are there still displaced families po na nasa evacuation center, Governor?
Meron pero konti na lang. Yung mga areas na lang talaga na hindi sila makabalik because underwater yung mga bahay siguro nila and all that. So yun ang we take care of them. Sometimes we go out of our way to assist them in going back, yung paglikas po nila and all that.
Meron po bang plano ang government ng La Union to relocate these families para po hindi naman po every time there's bagyo ay inililikas po sila?
Alam mo kung minsan, yung planong ililikas namin sila i-relocate is always there. In fact, even the national government is doing its part na ganyan. Pero kung minsan yung tao matigas ang ulo, ilipat mo na, after about a week or so, nandun na naman po sila.
Wala po kasi silang livelihood.
I cannot take it because yun ang sinasabi nila, yung livelihood nila, nandun din, ganon-ganon. But you cannot do it overnight. You cannot do it even in a month or two. Can you imagine you are going to teach them na bagong livelihood in a month or two? Yung tradition kasi nila, ito lang ang alam kong trabaho. Ganon din lang. So it is not just the physical thing, but yung mental na concept nila, no, you have to turn it around. It's not as easy, believe me. But we are doing a lot of things about it.
All right.
Siguro lastly, sir, what message do you want to send po to the residents of La Union amid the continuous rains?
Well, just like with any other interviews that I have, especially with media, no, I take this opportunity to air for them to listen to radios, social media, and all other forms of na makakakuha sila ng information as to the actual situation in their places. And if need be, report things na yung mga nasira, lalo na yung mga fallen wires ng trees, yung may mga kuryente and all that, so we can act on it. Kunyari meron yung mga maliliit na mga hanging bridge or bridges that are affected, for them to come out and inform the government, local government, kahit yung barangay nila, para ho mas madaling malaman namin and we can address the situation much faster. And for them to stay safe.
All right, maraming salamat po for joining us this morning. That was La Union Governor Mario Eduardo Ortega.
Maraming salamat din po sa inyo for giving us the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Gov. Stay safe. Now, don't go away because we still have more matters to discuss after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Good morning. I'm Cheska Calao. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The Senate impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte is expected to intensify next week as the prosecution continues presenting evidence on the alleged misuse of 612.5 million pesos in confidential funds. Commission on Audit Supervising Auditor Celine May Del Campo is expected to resume her testimony before the Senate Impeachment Court next week. House Legislative Information Resources Management Department Director Marivic Pareja is also scheduled to take the witness stand. Lead Prosecutor Batangas 2nd District Representative Jervil Ruisto said the prosecution will then present former Special Disbursing Officers Gina Acosta of the Office of the Vice President and Edward Fajarda of the Department of Education.
And now to discuss what lies ahead in the impeachment trial, we are joined by House Prosecution spokesperson and Lanao del Sur Representative Zia Alonto Adyong. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning,
Thank you for being
ladies.
back.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
How are you, Kong, after 5 weeks of the impeachment trial?
Well, okay naman.
Fresh pa rin naman siya.
Wala pa naman. Ayun ang iniiwasan natin.
Nakatulog naman.
Oo, yeah. Nakatulog naman kahit konti.
The mission continues, at least for the prosecution.
Okay, so Congressman, first let's talk about the defense refusing to stipulate again pagdating dun sa mga ARs. When is the prosecution and defense going to iron this out? And overall, do you think it's a delaying tactic on the part of the
It's obviously, no? Kasi I think the defense, since that they could not refute these ARs, kasi these ARs are from them, di ba? Kaya nga sabi ni Attorney Lorna Capunan, if you have that degree of mistrust, on the prosecution, we will use your documents, diba? Kasi we are certain that these documents, even if we use the defense's documents, would be similar to the documents that we will produce and we will present to the court. So I think that's how they will handle the strategy to make the people feel flooded with all these technicalities. That the trial the people will get bored with the trial, and hopefully the viewership will really dig deep down. So I think that's part of their strategy, no? Kasi obviously they cannot refute the ARs, so that's what they do, no? But we are thankful to the court because they have finally taken cognizance of the previous hearings that we had, including materials from the good government hearings as well as the confirmation hearings of the Committee on Justice by taking judicial notice of this hearing. So hindi na namin kailangan pa mag-produce ng witnesses to say na may nangyari talaga yan, because nobody can really deny that these hearings really did happen. Yeah.
Pero kung, kasi diba, from what we understand as ordinary people, dapat...
We are all ordinary people, including myself.
Diba, from what we understand, na dapat nangyari itong stipulation of evidence ito during the pre-trial. So
That's
how come
correct.
we are still here at this point?
Well, I think that, we're surprised nga because there are how many boxes? 15 boxes, diba? We are thankful that Attorney Poa was able to, say na, we'll stipulate in order that we avoid a lengthy discussion, diba? So, but unfortunately, before we present the second witness, ayaw naman nilang mag-stipulate. Ang reason nila is that their markings are different from the markings of the prosecution, which actually, to me, as an ordinary person, it's quite absurd because even if you have different markings, but if you mark the same document, it would easy for the court to actually reference the documents. Kasi sasabihin mo na lang from the prosecution side, this is exhibit number ganito ganyan. On the defense side, it's exhibit ganyan ganyan. So the dissimilarity or differentiation in terms of the markings between these two panels would not have been an enough reason to go and again do reset and do some markings again, kasi it would gusto nila while the court is in session. Diba? Sabi ko, paano, diba nakita naman natin think ano sila for 15 minutes ata, for how many minutes?
Actually,
30
medyo awkward
minutes.
na yun.
Yes.
Tapos ilang ano lang ito sila Andy Lim.
Yes.
Ito sina Andy Lim, sina
Sila Sis Fronyo.
Yes, di ba? Oh, nakikinig kayo. Tsaka
Nico
So,
Harina.
how many
Michael.
acknowledgement receipts that they have actually assessed and examined, and it took how many minutes, no? So imagine for 845, we're talking of this last quarter of 2022 for OVP confidential funds. We're not talking about the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter for the OVP and the DepEd. So imagine how long would it take for the court to simply suspend, while we're doing the markings during the trial. Yun ang sinasabi ni Lauren.
May singit ko lang kasi these ARs are also, di ba, it came from them
came
as
from
well.
them. Yeah.
Nilagay sa COA. So ngayon, parang ang concern nila is chain of custody. So parang, hindi ba parang may pagdududa din sila sa COA in that sense?
Lahat naman may pagdududa sila. I mean, if these ARs that they have submitted to the COA, they would have the perfect opportunity to assess and re-examine if these ARs are not the ARs that they have submitted to COA during the pre-trial brief.
Exactly.
Sabi ni Attorney Kapunan, they have had all the opportunity in the world to examine document by document, receipt by receipt, 'di ba? So why endure again the same process that we have already passed through that? Ang sa amin lang naman, na ka-markings naman, we just want to present this to the court, and it's not even an issue of admissibility of the evidence. Kasi later on pa naman yun mag-offer. Diba? So it's just a matter of having the court discuss about a certain AR similar to what they have marked and what the prosecution has marked. Diba? Parang ganun lang yun para may reference ang korte.
Well, another document that the defense has objected to is the Las Cañas affidavit, and there's already been a ruling.
Yeah.
But the objection was denied, but the presiding officer said that the marking does not mean that there's a ruling on the authenticity, the admissibility, or evidentiary weight of the affidavit. But for you, sir, what does this mean for the prosecution side? What do you think this means for the defense?
Well, it means that the NBI director, Matibag, has used Las Cañas' testimony as one of their sources for intel in order to determine whether the vice president really is capable of, acting on the threats against the president, the first lady, and the former speaker. Hindi naman sinasabi naman ng prosecution is not the veracity or the truthfulness of that document. What we are asking NBI director, if you go back to the presentation and examination, direct examination of the prosecution to Matibag, is that ang question lang is ano yung mga ginamit nyo na intel sources, open sources, even newspapers, even you guys can still be an open source kung meron kayo na-interview, halimbawa, na nasabi niya na ganito, ganyan. So that could also be used as an open source. Kasi if you're building and establishing in a gathering intel, you have to have the latitude of getting all possible information that you can use to build up cases against a particular person, especially if it involves grave threats against a sitting president for the first time in the history of this land, since the establishment of our republic. Did we ever hear a sitting vice president threatening directly, not just threatening, but describing the manner by which agreement was made in what's reached between her and the assassin? So yung Las Cañas testimony was not even contemplated by the prosecution panel to be submitted as an evidence. It's just a matter of an information according to the NBI, Matibag, part of his testimony na ginamit nila yon as one of their sources for intel. So it does not mean anything. No, I think that the court also understood that na hindi naman ito ebidensya na ginagamit ng prosecution. Ito ay connected doon sa in-explain o yung testimonya ng NBI director na kaya meron silang task force na ginawa. Kasi they felt that this is not just a mere outburst of emotion. It really requires for the national government and for other agencies to seriously look into these grave threats. So, yun nung takbo nung discussion at yun naman yung naintindihan naman nun ng korte.
Well, Congressman, another point of contention this week was the question on who is the accountable officer when it comes to the alleged misuse, right, of confidential funds, but then irregularities. Meron yung back and forth ni Senator Amy Marcos and ni Attorney Wamiel. But Senator Amy kasi was citing yung JMC, di ba, na nakalagay doon, ng accountable is the head of agency or the designated person. What's your interpretation?
That word alone, designated, where does that designation come from? It's the principal, it's the head of the agency, diba? I mean, it's obvious that the Vice President signed the fiscal and financial plan. She actually, kasi makikita mo doon sa name niya, meron doon kasing parang it's a way of testament na I do agree, I do approve, I attest to the veracity, etc., of the content of the fiscal plan. So nandun, it starts there kasi that would trigger everything from the disbursement vouchers. Siya pa rin ang nakapirmang. Sinabi niya under her direct supervision. Number 3, yung liquidation report, siya rin ang nakapirma, attesting the veracity and the truthfulness of whatever ARs that they have submitted to the COA. Again, the accomplishment report, siya rin ang nakapirma. Ibig sabihin, it's very obvious that she's the head. There's no denying that. I mean, SDO Fajarda was appointed, Gina Acosta was appointed by her. Mr. Fajarda was appointed by her, designated by her, diba, as SDO. So though their names may appear to be in the checks, but prior to the encashment of the checks, there was a call received by Shaw Land Bank, Shaw Boulevard branch, and Land Bank DepEd branch, informing them that certain individuals with these names will go to your office and win in cash. That's why they had to call and request for 125 million for OVP. Kasi hindi nila kaya, hindi nga nila nakaya ng buhatin. Kailangan pa nila ng trolley. So I think yung line of questioning, I was listening to, with all due respect to Senator Amy Marcos, when I was listening to her line of questioning, it seems to me that they are trying to throw somebody under the bus, 'di ba? Ano ba 'to? Parang scapegoat ko to, sacrificial lamb, 'di ba? Unfair naman sa SDO, kay SDO Gina Acosta, kay SDO Fajarda, kung sila, if all the blame should be directed at them, 'di ba? Ano bang kinalaman nila? Sila naman talaga yung inatasan lang na mag-encash nitong 125. Do you honestly believe that Miss Gina Acosta can do whatever she wants with that money without the supervision and approval of her principal? I mean, that would be absurd. That's why I say it's absurd. Kasi kung yun ang ginawa ni Miss Gina Acosta, then why did the Vice President did not fire her? Because that would be insubordination, di ba? That would be insubordination at saka very clear na ang Vice President ang pumirma sa lahat ng document when the auditing process moved and started. So I think unfair for Mr. Fajarda, on the part of Mr. Fajarda, and unfair ka Ms. Gina Acosta kung silang gagawing sacrificial lamb. And I'm not saying that is the direction, but that the way I understood the line of questioning, it appears that somebody has to be thrown under the bus just to save the respondent.
But having said that, do you feel, or does the prosecution team feel, that some of the senators are biased? What are your observations? Are they really asking
You're putting me on the spot. But
are they really asking the wrong questions?
I think, lahat naman ng mga senators, they have the right to, to to sabi nga ng presiding officer to intervene to clarify, but they should not be the one cross-examining the witness. That's very clear naman eh. Even under the Senate rules of impeachment, hindi dapat sila magko-cross-examine. Although I feel that it's not only me but the public watching, parang some senators are actually lawyering for the particular panel, no. In this case, based on what we have seen in the previous hearing, with due respect to Senator Marcos, she was actually trying to lawyer for the defense. That's obvious. That's why many people have noticed and observed na, wait, teka lang, parang kawawa naman ata si Ms. Gina Acosta at saka si Mr. Fajarda kung sa kanila talaga ipipin yung kasalanan, kung bakit hindi na-produce yung mga dapat na documents. I mean, very clear naman sa tayo na mga ordinary na tao. Madali lang talaga sa government expenses. Alam mo, pinakamadali for government expenses? Yung magbigay ng resibo. Kung talagang ginamit mo yon.
Tama.
Kung tamang ginamit mo sa tama, ang dali-dali kumuha ng resibo at ang dali-daling ibigay sa COA ito. Why did it have to take more than a year for the OVP and for the Department of Education to simply provide the invoice, the sales invoice, resibo? For example, if they have used the 10 million pesos, zero balance, nagamit nila, sip-sip, simut sarap, di ba? Sabi nila. Kasi may mga cases na hindi nagagamit o hindi na-consume lahat yung 10 million na expenses, di ba? Meron pang butalyan, yun, zero yun. Why did it have to take for the OVP and for the Department of Education to wait until this allowance was issued before they can why is it so hard for them to supply and to produce tickets, for example?
But they may say na kung halimbawa informant, wala naman siyang resibo.
This is the problem. Because if they say that that's a reward, then there has to be a document evidencing success. Why would you give reward to something that is not a success? Yun na sinasabi ni Senator Ping Lacson. Where is the documents evidencing success? Kasi yung operation, kasi magbibigay ka ng reward. Dalawa kasi yan eh. Purchase of information, you can use that whatever you want because you want to buy information. But reward is something else. Kasi it has to be linked with the success of the operation. That's why they are required to submit the accomplishment report, which the Vice President even attested and signed, diba? So if it's a reward, how come there's no, apart from the fact na hindi siya kasama doon sa joint circular, yung pagbibigay ng gamot, bakit si Mary Grace Piatos mas gusto niyang gamot ang binigay sa kanya na reward, diba? I mean,
yung nga din sabi kong, diba?
May sakit ba siya? May sakit yung kapatid niya? Or So it's a reward. So if it's a reward, then kung ikaw si Mr. Attorney Wilma, ikaw mag-audit niyan, teka lang, asan yung resibo?
Yes.
So, ang tagal, nag-AOM na, meron ng notice of suspension, hanggat may disallowance, asan yung resibo? Kaya sinasabi ko, working in a government, for government expenses, pinakamadali, pag government expenses, yung magbigay ng resibo. Kasi mismo yung bibilhan mo ng goods or items, willing pa sila magbigay ng resibo sa'yo. Minsan, hindi lang yung usual na sa cashier na lumalabas.
OR talaga.
OR talaga. Sir, gusto nyo ng saan po namin ipapangalan?
Correct.
Diba? I mean, it's so easy. And how come it's difficult for them to produce this?
As Attorney Wamel testified nga, confidential yung operations, pero hindi dapat confidential yung pinaggastosan.
Yeah, that's correct.
So now, can we just enter into hypothetical scenarios here? Because yung notice of disallowance, sige, balik yung pera. What happens if in the middle of this impeachment hearing, that the Vice President does return the funds?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And what happens if in the middle of the impeachment hearing, she decides to resign?
That's
hypothetical.
That's a good question. That's a perfect question. We are testing and we are, the on trial is the conduct of the Vice President, her fitness to remain in office. That's why it's called betrayal of public trust. I give you an example. Kung halimbawa, Si Pauline na lang. So, okay lang si Pauline?
Naging impeachable officer ako bigla.
Si Pauline ay nag-utang sa'yo ng pera. Or huwag na lang sabihin na nag-utang kasi mukhang hindi mukhang kaya-kaya naman eh. May malaki yung pera.
You betrayed my
for
trust.
example, if you and Pauline agreed na bigyan si Pauline ng pera para ipambili sa'yo, kasi magkaibigan kayo, pwede bang bilhan na ng sapatos or sa online, etc. Pumunta si Pauline sa ibang bansa, siya nag-shopping, so magbibigay ka ng pera. So binigyan mo siya ng pera. Pagdating niya dito, hindi niya ginamit yung pera mo. Binili niya sa iba. Let's say, nagkaaway kayo, gusto mo mag-file ng kaso, pero later on, after a few weeks or few months, Pauline was able to return the money. The question, would you still trust her the next time? Pagkakatiwalaan mo pa ba siya?
Babalik ko na lang.
I mean, yes, naibalik yung pera, but the trust still ay nabiyak. That is betrayal of public trust. Regardless whether that's an administrative or that's a separate case. If she restituted this money, it does not condone the fact that she, from the very start, had betrayed her mandate, betrayed the trust given to her by the people. So mas kinaibalik yan. In that context, pagkakatiwalaan po pa ba si Pauline? Kung next time na may papabili ka pa sa kanya? Of course not. It's a human... Kay ano na lang Angela nagbigay. Kasi man-neighbor naman kami. Titingnan ko siya talaga. So I mean, it's a basic human understanding na hindi mo talaga pagkakatiwalaan. Yung taong nag-betray sa'yo, mas kinaibalik pa rin niya ang pera.
That's a good analogy talaga, Congressman. Ano? But as far as the prosecution is concerned, do you think na-establish nyo na yon based on the witnesses you presented already for this article? Or may kailangan pa po kayong patunayan in your upcoming witnesses? Kasi there are also questions kung dapat ba i-expedite na ng prosecution yung presentation nila for this article.
Alam mo, Pauline, nobody wants to expedite this proceeding than the prosecution. Kasi ang gusto lang talaga namin dito ay may latag yung mga ebidensya at witnesses. Kaya nga kami nagtanggal eh. Kaya nga tanggal ng mga witnesses sa Article 4 eh. Pangalawa, kaya nga si Attorney Lorna Capunan is gusto niya na lang ma-expedite para hindi na masyadong tumagal yung oras. Ang gusto talaga namin, mabilis ito, at the same time, hindi ma-compromise yung quality ng mga ebidensya at mga testimonya na ipapresenta ng prosecution panel. Hindi naman natin gustong madaliin ito because the betrayal of public trust, these are serious allegations, no? And unexplained wealth. We are talking of the people's money here. So we want to make sure that every step of the way, the people and the impeachment court, the senators, would be able to determine yung allegations under the articles of impeachment corroborated not just a mere testimony but actual evidence and documents. Okay. So I think they deserve that. I think the people deserve no stone unturned. Kasi ang pinag-uusapan talaga natin dito ay pangalawang Pangulo. And nobody really is happy with all of this thing happening. Kung ako personally, kung ako tatanungin mo, mas gusto ko na lang hindi ito nangyari. Mas gusto kong na-implement niya ng maayos yung confidential funds niya. Mas gusto kong nasuportahan niya yung anti-counterinsurgency measure ng gobyerno. Mas gusto kong fully implemented, pero hindi yun ang nangyari eh. Diba? Reality bites, and here we are. No? There was really a misuse of the public funds. And this is not our allegation. This is actually what the documents spoke about. That there was a prima facie presumption of misuse of public funds kung hindi accounted for and kundi na properly na-audit with all the necessary documents that they need to submit to COA.
On AR still, Attorney Wamil said that this is the first time that he encountered in his length of service that a government agency submitted acknowledgement receipts. No? And then the defense would say na go back and read the joint circular. Does it expressly say na bawal ang acknowledgement receipt? What do you make of that statement?
Well, yung sa acknowledgement receipts, ito kasi yung sabi niya, ito lang yung paraan kung paano ang Office of the Vice President, because that's the first time actually that the confidential funds has been audited for the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education, di ba? In the last week, I think meron si Attorney Powa, sabi din niya, pero meron ding, kay Binay, pero they never audited it. Ibig sabihin, it could have probably not used.
And there are reports kasi
May saro nga, pero mukhang hindi niya ginamit. Di ba? Ito kasi ginamit. So, in that context, we think that this is the first time. First time talaga. So, ito pa yung magsaset ng standard how they would provide, documents that would justify the usage and the utilization of the confidential funds. So I think yun ang naisip nila, acknowledgement receipts. But yun nga, yung acknowledgement receipts, may mga pangalan na apart pa yung mga pangalan, mga sabi nga nung kasama kong si Chairman is laughable. Talaga nakakatuwa, di ba? Nakakatawa talaga si Andy Lim. I mean,
Pikit.
di ba? Si Pikit. So, pero wala siyang, ang importante kasi sa kanila, ang sabi ni Attorney Wamil, we had no other way to determine whether these funds have been successfully received by those names reflected in the acknowledgement receipts, because there was no attachment proving, halimbawa, that they have received yung tables and chairs, tapos saan binili yung tables and chairs. Actually, si Attorney Wamil, ano pa nga siya sabi nga ni Lacson, don't you have any other ways to determine kung totoong tao ba ito? Ang sabi nga niya, sa ano lang kami, dokumento lang kami. In fact, that alone would have been very easy for the OVP and DepEd kung dokumento lang yun eh. Kasi titinlang na niya, resibo eh.
Yeah, good
I mean, ang bilis lang sana eh. Hindi mo na kailangan mag-produce pa ng, ito si ano.
Yes,
diba?
yung totoong identity
That
nila.
would have been an advantage, diba? For the OVP and for DepEd. Kasi the COA did not want them to produce warm bodies. Ano lang, sales invoice lang. So I think, isa ito, while this trial is ongoing, marami ding ako nakita personally na medyo mga loopholes na po pwedeng gawing batas. Kasi if it's, for example, if it's used by a civilian agency requesting for a confidential fund, it has to be stricter than yung mga part of the security sector whose mandate really do require them to have intelligence funds. So maganda rin ito kasi apart from yung nakikita natin yung trial, may mga loopholes din na tayo nakikita. Ako personally, dapat wala na talaga. Let's keep confidential funds away from civilian agencies, for God's sake, kasi hindi talaga na-implement ng maayos. Sabihin pa natin na hindi nila walang misuse, pero kung hindi rin nila ma-implement ng maayos, sayang lang din ng pondo. Bigay na lang doon sa mga other departments or other agencies na pwede nilang paggamitan, di ba?
Ayusin niyo yun sa Congress.
Yeah, for example, that's why I'm saying na this is also an eye-opener to all of us, especially for legislators. Example, yung kay Vice President Binay, it was mentioned na meron siyang SARO, confidential funds, but there was never any instance where the COA audited these confidential funds. Ibig sabihin, hindi niya ginamit. So may SARO siya, may pondo, pero hindi rin nagamit. Sayang din yon. Sana nagamit na lang sa ibang paraan, di ba?
Well, attorney tuloy. Congressman, pwede na rin attorney.
Pwede naman, mukha na rin attorney.
We are ordinary people.
Galing kasi mag-explain ni Congressman. This week has been exciting na rin naman, thanks to Attorney Lorna Kapunan. Marami siya. Napatawa niya tayo this week. But what's your message to the public following this impeachment trial?
Well, I guess they should keep on watching, avoid believing information that are not sourced out straight from the horse's mouth, ika nga. It's part of their civic duty, and give them the benefit na dapat hindi nila pakinggan ay mga maling impormasyon. So let's do this. I mean, we are not happy doing this. This is for the country. Sabi ko nga, ang mga prosecutors, hindi sila masaya na itong ginagawa nila, pero alam kasi nilang ito lang talaga yung tamang gawin. Para ito sa ating bansa at para ito sa magkakaroon din tayo ng standard kung sino dapat na mga leader ang dapat maluklok sa mga matataas na posisyon.
All right. Civic duty and standards. Thank you for your time, House Prosecution Spokesperson and Lanao del Sur Representative Zia Alonto Adyong.
Yeah, come back here again.
Yes,
We have so much questions. That wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cheska Liton-Calao.
Manonood tayo ng Odyssey, Kong?
Oh, yeah.
I'm regular.
Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Berzosa, and we'll see you again on Monday.
Kapatid, Virgo News.
Your sides?
All the time.